Okay, this is part 6, George Orwell quotes. He wrote an article about writing called Why I Write. And so you got the long I sound, why I write, triple assonance. Okay, from a very early age, I knew that I would grow up to be a writer. Between the ages of about 17 and 24, I tried to abandon this idea, but I did so with the consciousness that I was outraging my true nature, and that sooner or later I should have to settle down and write books. I was somewhat lonely, and I soon developed disagreeable mannerisms, which made me unpopular throughout my school days. I had the lonely child's habit of making up stories and holding conversations with imaginary persons, and I think from the very start, my literary ambitions were mixed up with a feeling of being isolated and undervalued. I knew that I had a faculty with words, a facility with words, and a power of facing unpleasant facts, and I felt that this created a sort of private world in which I could get my own back for my failure in everyday life. Yeah, there's a lot of that in great writers. It's just sort of a frustration with reality. At least, when you write a book, you can create your own reality within the book that you write. It's also very therapeutic. You see, anybody, their frustration, their unhappiness, their sadness, their difficult memories, writing about it helps. They call it journaling, therapeutic journaling. Let's see, he continues, George Orwell. I do not think one can assess a writer's motives without knowing something of his early development. Yeah, when you read a book by an author, let's say you want to read one of the great books, Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky, Les Miserables by Victor Hugo, Christmas Carol, Charles Dickens, whatever. If you read the author's biography, it makes the book better. You can tune into where they're coming from, where it all comes from. It's more fun. Okay, there are 4 great motives for writing prose. This is again George Orwell. Number 1, sheer egoism, the desire to seem clever, to be talked about, to be remembered after death, to get your own back on grown-ups who snubbed you in childhood. The great mass of human beings are not selfish. After the age of about 30, they abandon individual ambition, and in many cases, indeed, they almost abandon the sense of being individuals at all, and they live chiefly for others or are simply smothered under drudgery. But there is a minority of gifted, willful people who are determined to live their own lives to the end, and writers belong to this class. Serious writers, I should say, are on the whole more vain and self-centered. Aesthetic enthusiasm, perception of beauty in the external world, or on the other hand, in words in their right arrangement. Pleasure in one sound or another, in the firmness of good prose or the rhythm of a good story, a desire to share an experience which one feels is valuable. Also a historical impulse. This is reason number 3. Desire to see things as they are, to find out true facts, and to store them up for use of posterity. Number 4, political purpose. Desire to push the world in a certain direction, to alter people's idea of the kind of society they should strive for. That's all George Orwell from Why I Write. Yeah, those are all true. You can easily feel those. Okay, a scrupulous writer will ask himself at least 4 questions thus. What am I trying to say? What words will express it? What image or idiom will make it clearer? Is the image fresh enough to have an effect? Can I put it more shortly? Never use a long word where a short one will do. If possible, to cut a word out, then always cut it out. George Orwell. Okay, he continues. One cannot see the modern world as it is unless one recognizes the overwhelming strength of patriotism and national loyalty. A people that elect corrupt politicians, impostors, thieves, and traitors are not victims, they are accomplices. Good novels are not written by orthodoxy sniffers, nor by people who are conscience-stricken about their own unorthodoxy. Good novels are written by people who are not frightened. And that's why everything that comes out of a university stinks, because talk about the most narrow-minded people in the world that all they do is try to go by political correctness. And they talk about diversity. Well, ask them how many conservative professors they have. The answer will be close to 0. The universities have been taken over by this lefty pinko craziness, okay? And that's why they stink. That's why they can't produce anything. And that's why I said before, you need Christian ethics or everything goes into the garbage can. And that's a fact, because once Christian ethics are out the door, everything's controlled by money. And money always just wants power, and so it destroys everything else. So that's how it is. Okay, let's see here. History consists of a series of swindles in which the masses are first lured into revolt by the promises of utopia, and then when they have done their job, they are enslaved all over again by their new masters. Literature is doomed if liberty of thought perishes. Yeah, you have to have free speech to write anything worthwhile. All right, let's continue here. George Orwell. In this place there are no martyrdoms. We do not allow the dead to rise up against us. Nothing will remain of you, not a name in a register, not a memory in a living brain. You will be annihilated in the past as well as in the future. You will have never existed. Yeah, so that's the way they handle their people who disagree with them. Okay, in our time, political speech and writing are largely the defense of the indefensible. Political language has to consist largely of the euphemism, question begging, and sheer cloudy vagueness. Defenseless villages are burned from the air and the inhabitants driven out of the countryside. The huts are set on fire with, I don't remember what the words were there. This is called pacification. A mass of Latin words falls upon the facts like soft snow, blurring the outlines and covering up all the details. The past is whatever the records and the memories agree upon. And since the party is in full control of all records and equally in full control of the minds of its members, it follows that the past is whatever the party chooses to make it. 2 + 2 = 5. War is peace. Freedom is slavery. Ignorance is strength. If all the records told the same tale, then the lie passed into history and became the truth. Who controls the past? Ran the party slogan, controls the future, and who controls the present controls the past. So there it is. All that was needed was an unending series of victories over your own memory. This is reality control from Newspeak or Doublethink. So this is why people really should be keeping libraries of paperbacks, audio CDs, hard copy DVDs, because a lot of the stuff, it's going to be deleted from the internet. It's rather obvious that that's what's coming. So at least the record will survive somewhere. You know, each house with its own library can be like a little monastery. And so when the lefty comes to, burn it down or take it all away, at least there'll be other ones that exist. So hopefully it'll somehow survive, and hopefully freedom will come back to the world. Okay, now another one from George Orwell. When one knew that any document was due for destruction, or even when one saw a scrap of waste paper laying about, it was an automatic action to lift the flap of the nearest memory hole and then drop it in, whereupon it would be whirled away on a current of warm air to the enormous furnaces which were hidden somewhere in the recesses of the building. And now he continues on the subject of power. Now I will tell you the answer to my question. It is this: the party seeks power entirely for its own sake. We are not interested in the good of others. We are interested solely in power, pure power. What power means you will understand presently. We are different from other oligarchies of the past in that we know what we are doing. All of the others, even those who resemble ourselves, were cowards and hypocrites. The you-know-who from the 1930s and the other you-know-who from the 1930s came very close to us in their methods, but they never had the courage to recognize their own motives. They pretended, perhaps they even believed, that they had seized power unwillingly and that it was for a limited time, and just around the corner lay a paradise where human beings would be free and equal. We are not like that. We know that no one ever seizes power with the intention of relinquishing it. Power is not a means, it is an end. One does not establish a dictatorship in order to safeguard a revolution. One makes a revolution in order to establish the dictatorship. The object of persecution is persecution. The object of torture is torture. The object of power is power. Now you begin to understand me. Yeah, and that's what the Soviets were all about, man. They were not about, improving Russia. They were not about, making anything better. They were about, we're going to control everything, and that's the way it's going to be. And if you don't like it, there's the gulag. Okay, Orwell continues. It appeared that there had even been demonstrations to thank Big Brother for raising the chocolate ration to 20 grams per week. And only yesterday, he reflected, it had been announced that the ration was to be reduced to 20 grams a week. Was it possible that they could swallow that after only 24 hours? Yes, they swallowed it. And that's been my opinion, that the average person, they'll believe anything you tell them. They have no judgment, they have no discernment, no historical perspective. So it's kind of sad, but, you know, the number of people that are well educated and that think and that, you know, have sense about anything from a historical point of view, it's a minuscule number of people. To do anything that suggested a taste for solitude, even to go for a walk by yourself, was slightly dangerous. There was a word for it in Newspeak. It's called own life, which meant individualism and eccentricity, potentially dangerous. Anyways, that's it for the 6 sessions of Quotes by Orwell. Hope you found this helpful.